shall we say, yeah, I think it's live now. So if you're on Facebook right now and you're choosing just to watch our Zoom after show, go for it. And have fun. Yeah, have fun leaning back and listening. Yeah, I see myself.
Oh, you're live.
Thank you, Mr.
And you're
Garfield.
live.
And scene. There we. Now I'm looking at me, looking at you, looking at me, looking at you. And so yeah, so we're live on Facebook. We've got our Friday after show here. Steve, you must have been very impressed with what you saw with the Verdino setup, no doubt.
Yep, extremely impressed. 10 out of 10 on that. I rate that room 10 out of 10. You must have a digital SLR.
Good eye, Mr. Garfield. Good eye.
What do you have?
It's Sony A6400.
And how do you connect that to the computer?
So I am connected via Camlink thingamabob, like some Camlink dongle magical thing.
Cool.
And then I'm running it through eCam so I can share all the fun photos of Mr. Jaffe.
Joseph, you love that. It's like, how did you do that?
Not expecting
That's the first we've seen of that.
Oh, stop it. I can't believe you just did that.
Well, I've got some good ones, Joe. Like, what about, oh, yeah.
You know where that is? You know where that is, by the way?
I sure do. There he is.
That was my shower. I still haven't worked out why they have a hammock in the shower. Do you know where it is? You haven't said where it is.
Mexico.
Yet. Yeah, it's the W Hotel.
That was our trip to Mexico with Scott Monty.
I will never forget. Well, there are many things to remember, and some things I wish I could forget. But I remember we were doing training, and I guess it was just like skills training capabilities for Coca-Cola, and there were 4 cities, and I remember just based on schedule that I would say. I thought I got the worst end of the stick. I got Mexico, which I've been to like 100 times, and I got Milan, which was nice to go to, going to the Duomo, etc. You got Cairo and Bangkok.
Indeed.
And then what happened? And then what happened to you?
Well, let's see. I know that part of our clever negotiation was that we were paid in kind by a certain airline. And we were going to use credits to travel, and that airline went nowhere near Cairo and Bangkok. So I had to take 57 hops to get to each destination. That put me in Cairo for, I think, Cairo, actually, I was all right. I didn't get to see the pyramids or anything, but I had, I think, 2 days on the ground in Cairo. But I had about 2 hours on the ground in Bangkok before I had to hop on the plane again to get to Cairo.
And there was something else that happened to you on that trip, if I recall correctly. I think you got horrible food poisoning.
I might have.
No, I think it was probably in Cairo.
It might have been.
So
I got horrible food poisoning in Paris when I was there for L'Oreal.
The good old days.
Look at all the diarrhea you guys came for.
You never got food poisoning in Second Life, so
this is true. But that Mexico W photo was actually from when we were down there for Volkswagen.
And when we went, and in fact, if I recall correctly, we had a ride from hell. We were in like a minivan driving from Mexico City to Puebla. And it was 2 hours, and I think the guy was driving at like 200 kilometers per hour or something like that.
That sounds about right.
We were freaking out. So Seth, I know you're on today. You were saying, I think in the comments, that, not to put you on the spot, but what Greg was saying is is just absolutely spot on with this. I mean, we obviously all encounter that at different levels, but I wondered if you wanted to just add to that or talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love to, since you're live streaming on Facebook, talk about all of the things I see wrong with my company. No. From the corporate standpoint,
You're talking generalities.
yes, no. Uh, like I said, everything that you covered is accurate. Uh, Thinking back to my undergrad education, even jumping into the business world, I felt, I don't know, I've always been the way that I am, even now being on these calls with you and watching every day, listening to podcasts. There's an ownership that people, maybe not just in marketing, I see mostly marketing people, but an ownership to knowing more and learning more that doesn't exist out there. It's, I'm going to get this degree, I'm going to learn the few things I have to graduate, and I'm going to go get a job, and that's it. And then they end up learning from like Greg said, the people that have been doing it for 20 years, and we have to do it the right way because it has to fit all of the models and processes and things that we've set up. And if we fly in the face of that, then there's costs associated with having to switch, or time associated with it, or we're understaffed and we can't stretch FTE that far to do something new or different. So there's a lack of knowledge to innovate, trying to connect pieces. And even if someone does have the idea to do so, it's almost impossible to try and make that happen just because of all of the mechanism that's in place.
And I mean, look, in truth, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
You're good.
but the reality is that is the same, and it is not untrue for every single corporation. And you know, I remember. I mean, it's why I wrote Built to Suck. I remember when I came to the US. So I came in 1997, and I was at Ogilvy, and I was I think selected to be a part of what they called the Account Executive Training Program. So I was an AE, and I still remember the program. I still remember how unbelievable it was. There was the binders and you know, readings and coursework and excursions and guest speakers, and we got like a certificate. And the amount of work that they put into this, and the amount of effort and expense to train us, to teach us, to elevate us. But the reality is that there are no budgets for training, not like they used to be. And people aren't staying in companies as long as they used to, whether that's of their own choice or because of this constant revolving door. And so I think that's why I think I connected with what Greg said in that first thing, which is you have to be a student of change. You have to be a student of adaptability. You have to commit to this constant process of learning. And that's why, like, even this show has been amazing for me, because every day people say, how can you keep doing the show? Like, how do you, and it's like, well, imagine like every day, like I'm getting this education, like, not just me, but my guests and everyone watching, you guys. How can I not benefit from doing that? I mean, it's rhetorical.
Yeah. Well, even we do a lot of, or attempt to do a lot of book clubs, at least in my department. So we read the growth mindset book, Carol Dweck's, from a few years back. We didn't make it very far, which is pretty typical from any book club that we try and do. We attempt to go through the motions of trying to learn and to advance and extend ourselves, but there's just never the follow through. It's, we get to the batter's box and then we get bored and are busy and walk away.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I feel like that's, I mean, very typical, obviously, not just your organization. It's something about the way corporate learning is structured, whether it's the, you know, the book club or the lunch and learn series or even conferences, right? You go to a conference for 2 days, you hear, you know, amazing speakers share all these really inspiring ideas. You're all riled up, you're ready to go. You get back to the office to a stack of shit that you know, kind of, you got to catch up on, and then you go kind of right back, right? You know, and I have a friend who for a while was doing sort of learning and development for the marketing department at Campbell Soup Company, and big fan of the Carol Dweck book, by the way. And he like, he was really struggling to try to come up with new ways to reinvent learning. It's like, you know, could we do, you know, I don't want to use the word micro necessarily, but I will. But like, can we do micro learning, right? Can we embed little moments of self-directed learning throughout the entire day, and actually create an environment where you learn something and then you apply it in real time, so you start to see what the applicability is. But it's really hard because there's really no system in place for that kind of learning in most organizations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I like that. I study a lot of, I'll say the bad word, gamification, but I don't like the word because nobody likes the word anymore. But that type of learning, whether it be video game based or otherwise, you can learn all you want, but until you take what you've learned and, just like you said, recognize that this is a space where I can use the thing that I learned and then do it, it doesn't stick. You can learn as much as you want and you can force yourself to apply it in certain situations. Oh, I'm going to make sure I do this right now. But unless you find that go-between, that place in the middle where something in your brain triggers, this is the thing that I need to do, and I just learned that, it never actually like spiders into an actual manifestation of your ability.
It seems to me that, it's such a common thread here, which is the inability for companies to change and change quick enough and commit to change and embedded into the DNA of the organization. Remember, Greg, how we used to use that acronym COST: cultural, organizational, strategic, and tactical. And still companies that they over-index on the T of tactics, they over-index on the O of organizational structure, but in a bad way, because they under-index on strategy and they under-index on culture, and arguably, and they're all important. As I often do when I tell people about it, I say, well, remember how we used to say it, which is, in fact, this might have been part of our Walmart pitch, the infamous Walmart pitch, which I'll tell that story in a moment. But I always used to say,
I may not survive the retelling, but go ahead.
You start with the S of strategy, and you go from S to T, in terms of, the strategy informs the tactics, but then you ladder backwards from strategy to organizational process and structure and ultimately culture. And so it was always begin with strategy and then parallel path in different directions. But as I often tell people, if tactics inform strategy, if it's just tactics in search of strategy, then what happens is clearly they're just off brand, they're off, they're just completely off in general. Now, if you have the strategy and the tactics, that's great, but they're going to be short-lived if they don't have the process to, not rinse and repeat, but as you say, learn, unlearn, relearn, repeat. And if you have that without the culture, they're eventually going to die on the vine, because that buy-in will never be there, or the change in leadership the politics will allow them to be short-lived. So it really is a longevity continuum in terms of how long these things can be implemented. And the longer that they are, the longer this endurance takes place, the more likely it is to become part of the company's DNA, that can outlive and out-survive this revolving door of executives and juniors, etc.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's tell the Walmart story. So why not? I mean, this is Seth. Now you can get revenge for me putting you on the spot. So Greg and I triumphantly are going to pitch for a massive piece of Walmart business, massive, and put us on the map. And and we've got a pretty tight pitch. I think it was about community or something like that, something about joining the conversation, if you will. And we arrive in Northwest Arkansas on our way to Bentonville. And I believe it was a Panera that we went to. First, we started off working in Starbucks, I think. And then we went to Panera. And we've got all the time in the world. We arrived early, the flight, we made sure that there was just nothing was going to kind of, rain our parade as we won this pitch. And we knew we were pitching against some huge agencies and companies. And in fact, so we build in time. We decide we're going to go have a bite to eat at Panera, and we really aren't stressed at all. We see a couple of people we know. I want to say, was it Doug? It wasn't Doug Haslam, was it?
Doug Haslam, it was Doug somebody. I can't think of his last name right now.
Who, by the way, works at a little-known company called, I think it was IBM. So we realized we were pitching against them.
Consultant, yep.
And they were nervous, and they were stressed, and they were anxious, and they were like worried that they might get. And we were just chilled, and because we knew we were going to win it. And so eventually we say, you know what, let's go. Let's be a little early, so we can go through. We heard that there are some, significant security protocols, and it is Walmart and it's their head office. So we would go early, settle in, relax, get a drink, a glass of water, whatever. And we arrive and we saunter up to the reception, and we announce ourselves, and we call our host. And I just remember listening to her going, "Where the hell are you? Where the hell were you? What the hell's going on?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I said, we're like 45 minutes early. She said, "No." I said, "We're 15 minutes early or something." And she said, "What did she say?" She said, "No, you're an hour and 15 minutes late," or something like that. I said, "What are you talking about?" We hadn't adjusted our watches, and they're on Central Standard Time and we were on Eastern Standard Time. And with all the time in the world, we basically had completely screwed it up. There were meant to be 17 people on the pitch. By the time we arrived in our room, there were 3 left. And we had about 25 to 30 minutes to deliver a 2-hour pitch. Needless to say, we didn't win the pitch.
But it gets better.
But it gets better. Over to you, Greg.
All right, because we then trot our way back to the airport, briefcases in hand, shoulders slumped, and we get to the gate, and we learn that our flight is delayed going home. And it's delayed, and it's delayed, and it's delayed, and eventually it's something like 10:30 at night, they cancel the flight. The one and only flight back home from wherever we were, the Bentonville area in Arkansas. Good news, though, they're going to put us up, of course, in a hotel. So they shuttle us to some Ramada Inn or
it's not a Four Seasons.
Yeah, or a DoubleTree or something in the middle of a cow field. There's this 4-story hotel. We get there, we check in, and we say, "Great, we've been on the go all day. We'd love to grab some dinner." No restaurant. You can buy something here and microwave it. I was like, "All right, well, forget it. All right, well, maybe we'll just grab a drink." Oh no, this is a dry county. But you can join the private club and drink. So we're like, "Well, where's the private club?" And they're like, "Well," and then they're like, "Well, you go down this hall, you pass the janitor's station, you go here past the pool, you make another right, go this way through the second staircase, go down the stairs, make a third right, and you'll see it right there." So we go down, we get to this door with a handwritten sign, private club.
Yeah.
It was probably a broom closet. With a woman, a middle-aged Arkansas woman in Daisy Dukes.
It wasn't a woman. It was a rather portly gentleman.
Well, whatever it was.
And remember, who was watching American Idol in the private broom closet club, and then invited us to sit down and watch American Idol with him.
I'm talking about the bartender. It was like this.
Oh, the bartender.
Like this middle-aged lady in Daisy Dukes, selling Schlitz in cans, basically. And then there was this gentleman watching American Idol on the little TV over the bar, who then practically gets into a fist fight with Joe over, who was the guy at the time? Adam.
What kind of Adam Lambert?
Yeah, Adam Lambert. They almost got into a fist fight over whether Adam Lambert was going to take it all.
And then, of course, remember, this was a day trip. So we had no underwear. We had no toiletries. Did we actually go to a Walmart? Or did we refuse to go? I think we refused to go. And I think the only place we could have gone was a Walmart. So I said,
Probably.
I think we decided we'd rather not brush our teeth and rather not change our underwear and give Walmart the extra. Meanwhile, just want to say to anyone who works at Walmart, we've reformed, we've changed our ways. We'll never be late again. We love you guys. Sam Walton is a hero of mine. And that was the story. And boy, oh boy, do we have more stories.
Well, if you ever change Corona TV into a sitcom, you've got 2 4-minute openers that will slay and captivate the audience.
Yeah, we've got a couple of episodes underway.
You know the next story I would like to tell, which I won't, Craig.
Yeah, you may want to keep that one under wraps.
But I will say that I don't think that you've ever laughed as much as with that story. We had some good times together.
We had times.
That's such a great statement.
Well, we had good times with Mr. Garfield when we went to CES. That was good times for the most part.
That's true. And I had Mr. Brogan on the show.
Mm. I've never seen one man eat so many fried potatoes at breakfast in my life.
Wasn't that Jeff Cutler, though?
Oh, Jeff Cutler.
We have a, what was her name? Ponzi.
Yep.
Chris Perillo, Ponzi Perillo, basically. She was part of our group.
She was part of our team. We had Melissa. But
I have to say, like, you know, when you think about it, right? That was what year? Was it 2009? 2008 or 9. So think about, you know, I just had my 10-year anniversary of Flip the Funnel, your 10-year anniversary of micro marketing, you know, 10 years essentially of CS. What I mean, it's still strategically sound, this idea of bringing subject matter experts, influencers together and creating a schedule and content. It wasn't haphazard. We had a program. I remember, I think we met the chairman of Panasonic. It really was a great program. I'm not just saying it because, you know, it was our company that put it together. Just quite frankly, like Virtual Thirst and Second Life. These were programs that when we look back on it now, just like all the things you said, Greg, they still stand up in terms of the brief, in terms of the execution, and in terms of what we were trying to solve for. I was proud of it.
I would agree. Steve is looking skeptically into the distance.
He's thinking about technical issues right now. I can see.
I know. I got the all this gear, and you know, I had to learn it overnight to use it the next day. And I remember getting the video camera, walking around CES, and I saw that Jimmy Fallon was going to be at the NBC booth, and I had connected with him online, so I ran over to where he was, and I was like, "Hey, Jimmy Fallon," and he's like, "Hey, Steve Garfield." So then I got a great interview with him about planning to produce Late Night with Jimmy Fallon before they had even done the show, and he had embraced video blogging back then, you know, and they were doing videos every day before the show to show all the behind the scenes. And here he is at home, you know, doing the Tonight Show at home, kind of the similar at home videos, doing him and his wife. And we're just back to the same thing. It's really funny. And a lot of my time these days is helping people improve their lighting, their camera, their sound. And you mentioned the book, and in my book, all the principles are there on how to do good video and sound and lighting and where to place the camera and everything. And all my examples, it's all history and all the
the examples seem so stupid, right? You're like,
yeah.
But like, I mean, the fundamentals of get seen, like the technical stuff and the basic principles, that it's like everyone now is clamoring for that kind of stuff.
Do you remember the one, what was it called? The one paperclip, or the one red paperclip?
Yeah.
The guy ended up getting a house from it.
Oh yeah.
The
guy traded his house for a paperclip. Yeah.
Amazing story. So I want to read
that
this
kind
to
of
you.
shit could never happen today, right? Because he'd be like, "Hey, what will you trade for a paperclip?" And then the next person on the line would be like, "Well, for $50,000, I'll tweet about your clip." It's like changed so much since then. Like you don't get those kind of good old fashioned like wholesome success stories anymore.
That would be a good little meme that we could put together. What would the one red paperclip look like on TikTok, on Snapchat? It would. I wanted to just read this to you. I got this from someone who was watching the show, who sent me this email, and they said,
"Get off."
Huh?
Wrap it up.
Let me see if this works. This is I'm going to share, and then he said, "Wrap it up." Let's see if this works. It's kind of cool sometimes with the. So the answer lies in the following highly ingrained way of thinking. Experts in particular have considerable difficulty in questioning the foundations of their beliefs, and this is attributed to our tendency to see the world through mental paradigms. So this is Alan Snyder. Such paradigms, our mindsets have evolved so that we can respond automatically to things of importance, but by having mindsets, we are intrinsically prejudiced. Because we are constrained to look at the world through our mindsets, the only way to see more is to acquire more mindsets. But to actually be original, it is also necessary to subvert conventional wisdom, and this would appear to be culturally dependent. And then it said, I believe that this is the direction to obtain greater clarity. Very good discussion this evening with Greg.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, especially the last part, but the rest of it makes a lot of sense. Like, you almost need a beginner's mindset, right? Which I guess is, kind of, I guess, in a way, a bastardization too of, the Carol Dweck growth mindset concept. But, like, you need to, it's like you have the curse of knowledge as an expert in anything. So whether you're an expert in, the way accounting has been done since 1942, or you're an expert in, social media marketing, you're bound to be stuck in those, deeply ingrained ways of thinking about what works and what doesn't work. And it's very difficult to break out of that.
I also, just by the way, and I'm going to shut us down in a moment, but I was just looking to see who's actually on the show on Monday. But what struck me there also, Greg, is the beginner's mindset could also be seen as a child's mindset. This idea of and curiosity, always learning, no biases, etc. So anyway, next week I have on Monday Marcus Whitney, on Tuesday Cyrus Crone, on Wednesday Pauline Brown, on Thursday no show because it's Jack's bar mitzvah, and on Friday Nick Johnson. So for those of you that are going to be with me next week, 4 shows out of 5. I hope you'll forgive me for taking off a day, and I wish you guys all a wonderful, safe, stress-free, anxiety-free, to the best of the ability weekend. And I'm going to stop the recording in a second. Seth, Steve, Greg, especially Greg today, it was really nice reminiscing and catching up.
Thanks, Greg. Good show.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Oh, what was that software again that makes you hijack my screen? Was that Ecamm?
Well, I wasn't hijacking your screen. I was just throwing stuff up. It was Ecamm, but yeah, I was just throwing it up in my video feed.
How do you use Ecamm as a guest with StreamYard?
So I use it as a virtual camera. So my DSLR is running into Ecamm, and I've activated virtual camera on Ecamm, so other streaming apps see it as my cam.
Oh, nice. I'm always learning. I just learned something
I
new.
taught you something. Get seen second edition,
I
newly
love
updated
that.
2020.
Yeah, with a forward by Greg Verdino. Still waiting for mine.
Just about Ecamm.
Logitech released something recently too. So if you've got more than one Logitech camera, you can plug them both in and it'll do the same kind of thing where it treats it as a fake camera and it pulls into zoom nicely. So I was messing around with that the other day for something
Oh,
else.
nice. Like you're kind of doing right now. That was cool.
Yeah.
But you have to have two Logitech cameras. You can't use like your MacBook camera and...
It has to be Logitech from what I've seen because it's their proprietary app. It doesn't tie in more than one, but...
You see, sadly, it cost me about $20,000 just to get this Logitech camera on eBay. So
I don't doubt it.
I mean, everything is so ridiculous.
I know. All right.
Greg, I was going to say that I can't wait for your book, especially being less than 100 pages. Kudos to you.
I'm hoping.
Keeping it readable in a short sitting.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to go for with this one.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. And
You too.
I'll see some of you next week. Greg, you can come pop in anytime, even though I know you won't. But this after show is it's always open.
I'm sorry. Who is this again?
Just use the code GETSEEN.
15% off.